Welcome back, brothers, to the 801st Legion podcast, a Star Wars Legion podcast. I'm here with Kyle. My name's Matt. We got some new spicy things to talk about, including the new tournament regulations. So without further ado, punch it, Kyle.
Hello there.
You must unlearn
Dark
what you
side of
have
the
learned.
Force is a pathway to many abilities.
Red,
Some
green, or
considered
red, green, red.
I am no
You know what you'll do?
Sorry about the mess.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
General Kenobi.
Let's rearrange some architecture.
Is it possible to learn this power?
I thank you for your hospitality.
Twice the pride, double the fall.
Impressive. I'll show you the dark side.
Here we are, guys. We're back. Good to be here. Kyle, how you doing?
I feel a little nauseous.
That was a quick ride, wasn't it?
Oh man, was that light speed jumping?
That it was. You don't got sardine oil on you or anything,
Oh
right?
no! Oh yeah,
no.
I finally watched that show. By the way.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh!
So you guys at home, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, we were talking about Tiger King.
The Tiger King.
Matt watched it. He was raving about it. Top 10 shows of all time for you.
Yes. Facetiously, yes. Unfacetiously and for real, yes.
It was a ride. Matt's passion for it got me to watch it because it was recommended on Netflix while I was watching The Office, and it was just like, you should watch this. I was like, no. And then Matt was like, you should watch this. And I'm like, all right.
All right. Well,
Go ahead.
it's just so funny you bring up The Office because I gotta hand it to the camera men on that show and the editors. It just feels like The Office because those people are so ridiculous. They'll say something and the camera will like zoom in on them.
Yeah.
Or they'll say something about something and the camera will zoom in on the picture. It's just like Jim and Pam were in The Office.
Yeah. Well,
it's so
except
great.
for pranks on Dwight, it's murder.
It's real.
It's like in the
Oh,
Twilight
gosh.
Zone, just the guy walks in. Today's topic is murder.
You're in a place in Oklahoma with some tigers. You look around. You think there's a lot of meth. There probably is. You've just entered the scary door.
You
ever
just
watch
entered the Tiger King show.
the Tiger Show.
What is? I was trying to
Tiger's
remember
dead.
what his name is. He has a name for his web show. Joe
Oh,
Exotic. I was trying to remember.
It's like daily or something.
Joe Exotic. Yeah, that's what I was trying to reference.
It's
but-
so funny.
yeah. Oh man, no, it was a ride. It was definitely very interesting. I'm not gonna lie. Like around 3 or 4 episodes in, I was like, "Yo, this isn't heat at all. this kind of is lame. This is pretty lame." But then because the first 2 episodes were like setting stuff up. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, so much drama." And then episodes 3 and 4 were like, "Okay, like we were told this already. Like, why are we going over these crazy people again?"
Yeah.
I don't know. But by the end of it, you're like, "These people are messed up."
Makes you feel better about yourself.
Well, speaking of television, going back to Star Wars a little bit, Clone Wars came out this week
The
again.
Clone Wars did come out.
Our weekly
Does it come out
recap.
weekly?
I think so. It may be semi-bi-weekly. I think that's how that works.
So semi-bi-weekly, so weekly.
So weekly.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it came out this week. I finally caught up. I watched the episode from last week and this week back to back.
Nice.
Gotta say, this last episode was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
It made me like the sisters a whole lot more. Gave them way more character depth and development too. What were your thoughts?
I have to agree. Because the first thing that I felt with the first couple episodes is this is it went back to feeling a little bit like a kid's show.
Yeah.
Where I was kind of like, okay, I can see where this could be good. Next episode felt pretty good, but by this episode, I feel like we were back to Clone Wars. Like, it felt like Clone Wars again. There was some
definitely.
nuance going on. I did like the look at Obadiah, the city.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. But I'm interested in what you think, because
Well-
you're the one who's been like, nah, man, this arc is not good. But for you to say it's good...
Well,
let's hear it.
My thoughts on the arc overall remain unchanged. This episode, while it was good, it wasn't enough to make me like the other 2 more. The episode right before this, so the second to newest episode, when they go to Kessel and all that stuff, it was interesting. Like, it was a good time. I liked being able to see the opposite side of Kessel. That was cool. But after that, they land on a cliffhanger. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's what I want to see. Like, that's the content I want Ahsoka. I want Ahsoka to get in that trouble,
being in like the deep down and dirty stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess like you can make the argument, it's like, well, then that's why you had to start in the first episode. That's why you had to be on 1313. My problem isn't with the environment; it's the characters.
Oh yeah.
So, but they're coming around. I like them a lot now. As far as like this episode goes, hopefully they continue to improve. But also, like you put Mandalorians in an episode, it's instantly A tier.
Right. And just prefacing this, we haven't seen the new episode coming out today.
Oh yeah, tonight.
We're talking
Tonight's
about
it?
last week's.
Yeah,
But
it's
still.
true because you're gonna see this when it's not even like
The last episode of the arc.
Yeah, yeah, man, that's gonna be pretty wild.
Big stuff. I will say this about the sisters. I really am enjoying Rafa's character.
Yeah.
I do like her a lot. The younger sister, she's good. She's okay. I do prefer the older sister's arc. She's just got a lot more depth. I think she's a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
And I think she experienced the most character growth in this episode. I do want Ahsoka to just use the Force and get caught already.
Yeah.
We're 3 episodes in. I'm ready for that. But Rafa kind of having a little bit of a change of heart and kind of admitting her faults is a great thing. I enjoy it.
No, I agree with you to a great degree, actually. I think that Rafa alone is what pulled that episode together. Even Ahsoka, like, I feel like Ahsoka took a back seat in a way. She still played a major role in the episode, don't get me wrong. But, like, as far as, like, what drove the episode, it was Rafa's decisions, Rafa's interrogation, all that stuff. So,
I was kind of surprised they actually went through with her getting interrogated. Usually people don't get tortured in this show. They get to the point of torture, a little zappy, over. They break out. But here, she went through the whole thing. And that was kind of interesting to have, to see her have to experience the consequences of her rash decisions.
Yeah.
And to think that that's happening to her sister as well, I'm sure that went into it. But overall, great arc. I did hate how they ended up back in the same place they started.
Oh, yeah.
That bugged me a
It
lot.
was
where
like,
I was
nothing happened.
Yeah, and so it made me feel like this episode was a little bit of them just trying to show that Bo-Katan and Ursa Wren,
Yeah, it's true.
Sabine's mom, are there. And I get that they could have, there's probably better ways they could have done it, but overall, I'm not going to hate too much on the
Right.
episode because of that.
When we still don't know what their intentions are. Like, why are they there? They're undercover somewhat. They're concealing their armor for a reason. Which, by the way, the cloaks on them are just freaking sweet. I
Was
love
it
that.
you that said in the Discord that you really... By the way, guys, check out the Discord.
Yeah.
It's great.
Definitely.
Was it you that said you really wanted to put cloaks on your Mandos?
Oh,
now?
yeah. I want to mold
Yeah.
some green stuff and put some cloaks on my Mandos
Oh.
when they come out. You know, all the way in September. But we'll get into that in a minute
For
here.
sure.
Oh, man. But, yeah, the episode was good. I'd give it a solid 6. A little bit above average. Not my favorite. It's still, like, not great. Or it's great. It's good.
Like, I'd give it like a 7.
Yeah, probably around there. 6 to 7.
Very enjoyable. Felt like Clone Wars again.
Yeah, it did. It was good. It was above average, is what I'm saying. Not quite like A tier, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not
above
the
average.
A-team.
But yeah, so that was Clone Wars. Moving on, let's see, what do we got here today for you? We got some intel briefing for you. Release dates. We mentioned those. What the heck is going on with release dates, Matt?
I can understand Corona pushing stuff back. Let's
Yeah,
be real.
yeah, for her, for sure.
And I think that's a fact of life we're all kind of coming to terms with. Because just so everybody knows, it looks like we're going to be getting the STAPs, the ATRTs, all that stuff in September now.
Yeah.
And everything else will be kind of spread out through, I think, July and May is
Yeah.
when we're supposed to be getting some of the earliest stuff like Vital Assets
Mm-hmm.
and Cassian and K2. Mostly we bring this up because we are noticing some people, especially through the Facebook page, are getting these things early.
Yep. So that's a thing.
That is a thing, and we bring it up because we hate to say it, but it is something that does seem to be happening quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we hope whatever's happening, FFG can lock it down. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's a little, it's weird, and it kind of feels bad. And I'm sure if we're the only, we can't be the only ones seeing this and feeling bad about
Yeah.
it.
Well, it sucks when you like. I feel like I don't want to frown upon the people that got the product because they saw the product in the store. They were like, wow, I didn't like probably a good chance like I didn't know this was out, or maybe they did know it wasn't out yet, and they're like, well, I'm just gonna take advantage of that because let's be honest, if we were in the store and
We would do the exact same
yeah,
thing.
like
Let's be real.
Put yourself in their shoes. I mostly blame the game store for not knowing and staying on top of like what's going on. You know, first of all, I don't know how these game stores even got the product.
And I think that's the key issue.
Yeah.
Is because if you got it and you're an FLGS and you're hurting because of Corona, you're gonna sell it.
Uh-huh.
I don't think the problem lies there. I just wish that I don't know if it's the distributors or FFG, but they need to lock down a release date. They need to be clear about it, and I think just be open about it. Just a little communication. If they're saying, hey, we got this region stuff printed in this language, we're going to release it, I would be totally fine.
Yeah.
Or if they said, hey, we've got it made for Spain, give it to Spain. That's totally fine. But it feels a little bad to find out secondhand through Facebook.
Well,
also,
right.
It also hurts when we have things that aren't coming out until like September.
Yeah, that
and they're
they
getting
have.
announced now. It's like,
Yeah.
you said this last time, but it takes away the mystery of it all.
Yeah.
Demystifies it. I don't feel as hyped.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help with this whole Corona thing on our side, not the manufacturer side or the business side, like on our personal side as players. Like, we can't play it anyway, but man, it would be cool to at least have it and paint it and stuff like that. Like, I get it. Like, there's really no room to complain on that side. Like, no one's going to be able to play with it anyway. But when it comes down to it, it's like that person also already, like, if they're a competitive player in any sense, they have a leg up on everyone now because they spent more time with the unit. You can argue Tabletop Simulator, but that's an argument we've had before.
Yeah.
So
I'm also like this close to popping out Tabletop Simulator. I own it.
Yeah.
I'm this close to hopping back on.
Yeah.
Just saying, to heck with it. I'm gonna take a weekend, just dig my teeth in and figure it out.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I don't know, but like the whole situation is very frustrating though, because like, despite how you slice it, there is a disconnect between customer and producer or manufacturer or whatever, game maker, FFG and the consumer are disconnected right now. And I'm not just talking about delays, but with like how they announce things, how they go about communicating things, which in my opinion, as someone that knows a little bit of the ins and outs of the industry, of community management, of board game sales, of tabletop sales, like, it is frustrating because like I know that like I could point to like, hey, this could be better, like let me help you do this, but like I understand like they don't need more negativity right now. It's just a small squad. Like, let's be real, the Legion team is small, and they have a lot on their plate. And I, like all the time, I'm just like, whenever I get a chance on Twitter or Facebook and I see something from FG Direct, I try and give them positive feedback because I know that they know these are issues.
Especially right now where like you're working from home. Like,
Yeah.
dude, you got to get these people as much support and love sent their way as you can.
Yeah. I just hope that they learn from it is all I'm saying. Like, I hope that this disconnect doesn't continue, because if it does, I've told you like outside of the cast, but like the risk is losing customers. There may not be a community to fund your game if this continues, and that's sad. Star Wars is great, Legion is awesome, but that only goes so far if you're not being honest and communicative with your audience. It's frustrating, very frustrating, from so many aspects.
It is. I'll say this because Mr. Pleb brought this up on the Discord, and he's so right. Because we were talking about this, and his comment was, well, coming from the Armada community, this is nothing. And I have to admit, that is some point I need to bring up from the counter argument. The Armada community was sitting on the SSD for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So we can do this.
Right.
We can pull through.
Right.
I'm sure it's just a speed bump, but...
Like, I know other
We can
games
do
have
this.
their problems right now, too. It's not FFG. It's just, it sucks when it's your game,
That's the key. That's it.
It's like, it can happen you don't care about when it happens to somebody else, but when it's your game, that's when arms are raised.
Ooh.
And
Oh,
so
baby.
we don't mean to, like, rag on FFG to rag on FFG alone, like... If anyone from FFG is listening, which I highly doubt it, but if you are, we love you guys. We love your product. Don't stop.
No, not at all. Keep going.
Just a little bit more communication, please. That's all we ask.
It's
Like,
a tweet every now
a
and then.
tweet saying, "Hey, you did great. You did great when you said, hey, our release schedule is updated. When you updated us on Twitter, I need that every time. Like,
Dude, every time.
Yeah, like somebody needs to be even if it's not just Legion specific, just FFG in general. Someone needs to be in charge of community management, like 100%.
Might be an Asmodee thing, but I agree. That's
true. It might not even be in their hands. Who cares?
It may not be. But
Anyways, we love you guys. I don't want to be negative anymore. I'm tired of being negative. We love the game. Let's just continue on with what we love.
let's get into some other controversy.
Controversial things.
Controversial
Yeah, okay. So I guess let's stop being negative. Also, let's continue to be... we want to maintain top positivity.
Absolutely. And for that purpose, we're going to bring up the next topic, which is the meat of the podcast today.
Yeah, boy.
Which is the new tournament regs.
Yeah. Real quick, before we get into this, guys, I do just want to let you know at home, if you're listening, if you notice a little change in audio, we're trying something new. We're in a new location for Corona, social distancing, all that stuff. So we're trying this out. If it bothers you, sorry. We're just going to do it like this.
Let us know in the comments. We also won't forget to edit things out next time. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, shout out to the first 30 listeners of that heard my phone call with a customer. That was awesome.
Oh, that was funny.
But yeah, what are you going to do when you run a game store where no one's going to come in for hours on end? But anyways, back to the main topic. The new regulations for tournaments came out.
And we're going to start. We're not going to talk about everything. There's a lot you can look up. Because there's a lot of things where it's like phrasing changes, word updates, stuff like that. But we're going to talk about some of the things that stood out to us.
100%.
There are some things that other podcasts have talked about as well, and we'll talk about some of the same. But we're going to start out with what I actually really thought was super interesting, and I like this a lot, because this applies to everybody, casual or competitive, terrain guidelines.
Yeah.
That's
probably my biggest. That's my biggest yay.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't mind a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But when we ran our tournament a couple months ago now, it was such a I don't want to say disconnect, but also just like unsureness, if that's a like we weren't 100% positive of like, okay, is this like how it should be? We ran our first tournament, let's be real, like that it's gonna happen, mistakes were gonna be made, but now we have like a paper to reference, like how should something be set up, and that's just awesome.
Yeah, and I think this is great, especially for like casual play as well, where like on the tournament side of things, you're trying to manage how many tables do I have, how many players do I have. Is there enough terrain for me to even make a tournament to happen? Like, how do I get that working? But on the casual side of things, I've played on some tables that have way too much terrain, where you're not really line of sight is just not a thing.
Yeah. Unless
you're like 2 inches away from each other. And I've played on other tables where there is only terrain in the corners, nothing in the middle, and it's just a shoot-it gallery. Oh yeah. And that's not a game. There's no strategy. It's just who has the better dice at that point.
Who has more droid units on the field.
Well, specifically, I played that against a couple Empire players. It's like, okay, great. Like, against an Empire gun line or a clone gun line, you just lose. So the game can't really be played. And you can't really do objectives. I mean, you're just going to get shot. So I do like these rules. I guess, breaking it down, what would you say about the terrain?
Well, the spacing is probably the most interesting thing. What is it, a speed 1 or not a range 1 in between each large piece of terrain, or anything that's like of line of sight blocking. That was probably the biggest thing to me that was the most interesting. I know there was something like that in place before, but in the new diagram they have a picture and they show you like what that actually means, and that means that like tanks are viable. That's my big thing.
Yeah. Like I like that they say the speed 1 between like those bigger pieces of terrain because like, dude, I can understand having some places where maybe the tank can't get through.
Right.
But one thing that's interesting is like, this is a rule I've always lived by making the tables. But if you notice, in the middle of each 3x3 square, there is usually like an objective piece. Yeah. So in the past, it's always helped me to kind of put those things where the objectives would be, hypothetically. And if you look here, they kind of outline that a little bit, or at least having something close to it. I do enjoy that a lot. I like how they set rules for height terrain as well.
Oh, yeah.
I do like that. Sometimes jump just feels dumb because you feel like, oh, there's nothing to jump over.
Or onto.
Yeah. Like, why? You're only going to really just do... there's a lot of things like that. And one thing that I think not a lot of tables I've seen have, but I absolutely love, is area terrain.
Oh, yes.
Something that'd be difficult terrain to walk through that can give you cover. Things like that. I do love that a lot. We're not going to break down everything, but like they do say like 25% of the table minimum, 35% maximum. Yeah. And they do give guidelines. I like that they say guidelines because it's not a hard, fast rule. Yeah. But you can do what you need to depending on what you got.
Yeah. Well, like I love how you brought that up, like the guidelines. There's nothing stopping your game store when they're running a tournament, maybe not a prime, but like a smaller tournament, to be like, we want this table to be a little bit more open. We went on the 25%. We want this table to be a little bit more dense, so we went on the 35%, So there's wiggle room, and I really like that. Also, the fact that it provides both this is something I don't see a lot of people talking about, but it's super interesting. They show diagrams and rules for both skirmish and a full game.
Yes.
which I'm inclined to think with that, you could say like, oh yeah, like of course they'd want to do it, but it's in the tournament regulations booklet.
See, that's such a... Ooh.
Do you think they're going to... My thought is like, oh, do you think they'll come up with a skirmish format tournament, like league championships? Like,
Well, that foreshadows that they should have one, because you got to think like there are armies and units that play
Yeah.
completely differently skirmish mode than they play 800
Oh, yeah,
points.
100%.
Like Empire, I would say, is a little underpowered in skirmish mode.
sure.
Just because their power comes in a couple big hitters.
Bang,
but-
wow, chapow guys.
Yeah, exactly. And gun lines. Can they pull out some good stuff in skirmish? Yes. But I have a lot of success with units like droids, for example. I think they are an 800-point unit. You kind of need to spend your points. But
Well,
rebels do well in skirmish.
right.
Rebels
Well,
do great in skirmish.
So on my side, like as a clone player, like I love clones in both skirmish and full game. Like they perform admirably in both. But there are weapons or upgrades that I will take in skirmish that I would never touch in a full game. Like the shotgun, the
Killer,
BP,
that's
the
a good
DP, like with Pierce range 2, that's amazing. I'm not going to really do that with a full point. Like occasionally I might experiment, but like I tend to gravitate away from that.
Yeah.
But like getting something like that and using these minis I bought in a different format, awesome. Also, Overwatch, you're going to take it in both, but it's just instantly like, yeah, I'm ready to stand by anywhere.
I'm a clone. I'm going to stand by and use it.
Yeah.
I do like that, especially with Rex's scout.
Yeah.
Well, you give him scout to a scouting party and recon intel. Good stuff. I hadn't thought about that, and I think so. I don't know if we'll see it soon, but I would love to see like a Gen Con announcement.
Yeah.
Saying like, hey guys, we're doing like league night stuff.
Yeah.
We're doing like maybe when we go to Worlds, you can have your skirmish Worlds, 800-point Worlds, something like that.
Well, it's formats. That's what it comes down to. Like any other competitive tabletop card game or whatever has different formats. Like you think about Magic the Gathering, the most famous card game out there has different formats that you can play competitively at. I mean, why not bring that over? I'm sure I'm not as 100% keen on Warhammer. I know that. I mean, as the biggest game, probably biggest miniatures game.
Well, it's interesting is Warhammer. They have different tournament circuits.
Right.
So like European and American, they do things a little different.
Okay.
With rules, but you bring up Magic. This is something I wonder if they could do with skirmish mode that they do for Imperial Assault.
Ooh,
where they
yeah.
swap out which characters are allowed each cycle. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So they could say, hey guys, skirmish tournament this year, we're only allowing these minis. And then you get a rotation. So maybe the meta from 800 doesn't exactly translate, or maybe they don't because it's different.
Or like a
game
ban
format.
list, like like these characters are too strong in this format. We're not going to let it. And that could go back to a full point game too. Like, hey, maybe this unit is way too good for a full point game, which I highly doubt would ever happen. But
Yeah.
Because the game, like they've said it time and time again, the game is built as a 3x6 game. They will always make sure, they will always attempt to make every unit viable in some capacity for that format. Skirmish being an afterthought, or maybe like a second wind or thought process, I should say. It's a different beast.
It definitely is. But yeah, dude, I thought that was really interesting. Other rules that we thought were pretty cool, we wanted to bring up. And this is one that I've been kind of on the case for this a little while, and this is what I thought people were gonna like most. We'll get to the thing people want to talk about most in a little while.
Oh yeah.
MOV. I like the change to MOV. I'll say
too.
it straight up. And now I'll kind of break it down real quick. So the way the MOV change is going to work is that you break it down based off victory points. So let's say you're doing recover the supplies. So you've got 5 boxes out there. Each of them is 1 victory point. At the end of the game, whoever won has the most victory points, and you do a percentage off of that. So if somebody has 3, out of 100, they get 60% MOV. The other person gets 40, and you record that as you move down. I actually really like that.
Well, the percentage just makes it so much more calculable. Like you can directly see, okay, like this is where this person performed well, and that's why they did as well as they did, or as poor as they did, inversely in the tournament. I think that some people will take issue with this because I know there are people that do like the strength of schedule. Like those people are out there. I'm not saying those people are wrong. We personally just favor the MOV. And I know MOV still has its flaws. Like if you have moisture vaps, and you win, it's not as great of a win as if you were going to do intercept. And the percentage-wise does dull down the difference in intercept transmissions a bit, but still, like comparing those two, most of the times with evaporators, yeah, those guys, evaporators, most of the time you're going to come down to a 50-50 split, and you're going to go down to kill points.
I think it's interesting because that's like something that a lot of people in SOS, they would do that just to get the win and walk away.
Right.
Because number one, your wins still count more than your MOV.
Right.
MOV is just a tiebreaker. And what I do like in the MOV system, and we can talk about this in a little bit, is they have the extended tiebreaker.
Yes.
Where your MOV is taken into account. If you tie MOV with somebody else, then you get the average of the MOVs of your opponents that you guys played.
So there's remnants of a strength of schedule still, but
basically.
Yeah.
But what I like about this is like with moisture evaporators, it takes it from being a little bit of a strength to being something where it becomes a weakness. Because maybe you don't just want the win anymore. You want to win big.
Yeah.
So moisture evaporators, maybe you're taking it because it's kind of a concession. So
100%.
you're like, I can't force what I want, but I can still force this. And as red and blue player, maybe you do that. Or maybe as red player, you start forcing it because you're like, you know what? Even if I'm going to lose this, I take it just to get the 50 MOV. Because one thing that's interesting is they talk about if people drop, then you get like your average MOV.
right.
And if people concede, depending on when they concede, you get a different MOV point. So it makes being blue player so interesting because you're going to start wanting to take things where, okay, I'm not just going to win, but am I going to win big? Am I going to take an MOV that's going to be 60 or higher?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Well, in late game too, like maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm high on something, but late game, I'm glad you brought up the blue player thing because as red player, being the last person to go, like maybe you can focus in on like doing a certain objective that you know your opponent can't respond to that otherwise you wouldn't go for. In a tournament setting, that's huge because like you don't always rarely do you play six turns in a tournament. So maybe on turn 3, you're like, okay, well, I have all these guys. We're tied on points. But if I kill that guy, I'll take the win, you know? So maybe you do want to start like I like how you brought up blue player because maybe like you don't go for blue player because you're so confident in your killing ability that you're like, no, I'll take red player because I have a lower activation count, but I'm so confident with my standby clones or my Imperial gun line. Like I'm so confident in my killing ability that I don't need to go for the objectives as much because I know we're going to tie on this objective anyway.
Well, and what's interesting is like bounty and R2D2 a secret mission become that much more important.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's say you were about to lose 6-4. Well, if you score again, you can probably bring that down to like a 45-55. Yeah. Which is so much more important. Not just for you to win, but like it gives you that edge on somebody.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, if I can force this, I can pull this off. And I think these tournament changes to MOV, because you can't just turtle up anymore with an MOV system. You have to actually be engaged.
Which is great.
Love that. Like, gun lines are good, but the gun line's weaknesses are always mobility. Yep. This kills that even more. I think this combined with vital assets changes the game completely.
Yeah. It's just a shame that we won't be able to play it until 2 months from now.
I know. Like for those at home, we've been proxying, and like, my gosh, I'm loving the vital assets.
Can we just
changes.
cancel Corona already? Can we just call it a day?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know what I did to be grounded this long. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah, but no, we joke about that. But you know, I guess any other thoughts on MOV? That was a quick breakdown of it. Like, just keep that in mind.
Well, no, I think that's pretty much it. I'm glad you brought up R2 because R2 leads us into the next topic of the schedule we want to change, and that's line of sight.
A line of sight change.
Which the reason I say R2 because R2 got a huge nerf.
Yeah.
So R2's 2 feet is 2 feet tall, but apparently in the game he's 6 feet tall.
6 feet tall. Right. Let's break it down first. Do you want to talk about how it works?
Quite simply, like in a competitive environment, all environments, you will be using this template that you'll place directly behind your character or your unit or your mini or whatever you have. You know, only small bases.
Only troopers too.
Only troopers, yes. And the notch on the top is supposed to be aligned with the middle of the mini according to where the shot is coming from. And there's a box that is pretty much just it's just like a box that stands like an inch or 2 inches above the base, and it's just a squared off thing. So it's just a standardized, like if you can see the box, you got a shot. It's great for people like Luke, where, you know, like if their lightsaber's sticking up, you can't shoot the lightsaber because, well, he's behind cover. It's great for people like Wookiees, where they're already so much taller. They have to, they benefit from it greatly. It's terrible for droid troopers, like all of them. Droids from the CIS, R2, everybody that's like thinner or could utilize cover easier is now nerfed in that respect. Which we've talked about this before. I think droids having to cohere to this rule is actually kind of lame. I get it. Like, I'm not complaining from a gameplay perspective, but like, I feel like because they're smaller, they should benefit from that.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, that was a benefit. Me being a droid player, being just that much more skinny of a character.
Yeah.
And your droids aren't that, I hate to say not that mobile, but outside of your commanders, they're not hanging off their bases at all. There were times you could hang out, like, and maybe your base is hanging outside of a wall a little bit, but it's covered by a box, but you're behind the building.
Yeah.
So there were times, I had to think about this for a little while, because it's a controversial topic, like, and I want to bring this up, like on the Facebook page for Legion, whatever, man, it's getting heated out there.
Oh, yeah.
I think people need to, just straight up, I actually copied down and read the post from one of the admins from the Facebook page, because he brought up how people are being vicious about it. They're being very rude. They're being mean to each other. Like, if somebody thinks this is the greatest thing ever, they're getting just hated on supremely. And if people think this is a bad thing, they're getting hated on too. This should not be happening, guys. Like,
chill out. Like,
chill out.
I've seen the same. Like,
chill out.
I remember one interaction in particular, not even a heated comment. The person just posted a comment, like they had printed out the template, and they were like, "Well, how does this work?" So they posted something where like the corner was sticking out, but it was like,
I saw that same one.
And then somebody was like, "Oh, here we go, all these whiner babies complaining about edge cases." I'm like, you realize Legion is a game of edge cases. We are inclined to ask the hard questions because we always want to break the game. Like that's who doesn't do that?
Well, and I hate to say it, but that's literally how you win the game. Is you win these games by. We say breaking, but it's literally like pushing the rules to their limits.
Right.
And that's how you do it. Now, if you're casual, don't worry. It's not going to be an issue, but there's no need to get mad and angry, call people names, give threats. And especially, Legion is a game where I've seen a lot of people are newer to board game, tabletop minis games.
Very introductory.
Very introductory. Yeah. Calm down.
Yeah.
If you've played minis games forever, you need to take it easy on these guys. Like, you got to give them a pass.
Like, the last thing you want to do is like toss this shade. It kind of makes me chuckle, and that's why I'm struggling to find the words. But like, toss the shade at people that are newer to the game, that are spending buku amounts of bucks to keep the game you love operational. Because maybe you have everything and you're done. Like, you don't have to collect as much anymore. You only get the new releases. But now this new person is getting everything because they're so on board. The person that was rude to them or made them feel bad for asking a question, like, you just ran them off. What good does that do?
Their money was going to fund your hobby.
Yeah. like even, and that's like the most cynical way to look at it, but it still rings true. Like, I don't understand the mentality either way.
Yeah.
Just chill out, be a good person for once. A little harsh.
Hot takes from Kyle, but calm down. But yeah, so just,
I was never calmed up, Matt.
I will say this: I did not like them at first.
Right.
But the more I got to thinking about it. And there actually was another post on Facebook that made me think this was great, because I was mostly on Reddit, and I didn't hear too much about it on Reddit. The Reddit discussion was a little quiet. The Facebook page, there was one guy that said this, and it was so clutch. I played X-Wing, you played X-Wing, I played Armada. But he put it this point, where like the maneuver, what the template does, because the controversy is this: if you're hiding behind a wall, but you put the template behind somebody, and you can see the corner of the template, but you can't see the mini, you can still shoot the mini. What this does is it puts Legion on the same level as X-Wing and Armada. Yeah. Where in X-Wing and Armada, it's not about the ships. The ships are representative of the base.
Yeah.
So it's cool, but the base is what it's all about. And that may be
you can play a plasticless game.
Yes.
Just get the cardboard out.
Exactly. Yeah. And so now you technically don't even need the mini to play the game. And I actually like that a lot. It made me kind of take a step back. I think a big part about this too is that it doesn't jive logically. Yeah. Will on the Discord pointed this out, that he kind of would have liked there to be like dual sizes. So like a standard one for like regular trooper minis and maybe one for shorter trooper minis. Just so that way there is not that big of a difference.
And I don't
Which would have been fine, but it's not that big of a deal.
I definitely see a future as well where they are like, maybe we didn't think about that, or maybe we changed our mind. We do want it. They could still do that, like with community feedback, they can still do that. So like constructive feedback, 100%. being hostile, that's not going to work.
Not at all.
But one thing I remember going on record with the podcast, like saying I'm not a fan of this at all.
Yeah. We talked. This was weeks ago.
Yeah, and then it came out, and I was like, actually, I'm a super big fan of this because the way they approached it, perfect. It's like a video game. If you know anything about video game development or how, like, we'll use shooters for example. There's a thing called a hitbox. You may not always get a shot right on the person, but it's in their hitbox. It accounts for margin of error. It accounts for all this stuff that could happen within the computer system or anything like that. There's a standardized box around these characters. And as long as you hit that area in their hitbox, it does X amount of damage for like a headshot or a body shot. And I love that it translates so well to a tabletop game. All it is a hitbox now. You know, like it accounts. It's gracious because like maybe 2 turns ago you nudged that character a little bit further than you should have been. Oh well, now there's a little bit of a lean, like a margin of error, flexibility is what I'll say. And it changed with that outlook. It totally changed my mind. R2, like I'm still with Will. Like we were talking about. Like I wish there was a smaller template for like R2 or maybe like Astromechs in general. I wish there was something like that, but there's not currently. I'm not going to complain about it because like overall R2 still has amazingly good abilities to not get shot at.
If he has suppression, he can still destroy.
Yeah.
Or C-3PO, I think it is.
C-3PO has to be there.
He can still distract you, so you're still not shooting him.
Well, it's also like without any
like
upgrades
that.
alone, like not many people. In my experience, maybe you're in your local meta, you're seeing something different, but I don't see people shooting at R2 like at all. They're like, oh, well, I'm not going to waste a turn on that 35-point activation. Meanwhile, I'm just walking up for that secret mission.
Oh my gosh! Our last game, I can't tell you how many times I started shooting Kenobi, and then at the very end, I was like, I should have just shot somebody else.
Yeah.
I really should have shot R2 or something.
And then if they do kill R2, okay, you just wasted that 100-point activation on this 35-point activation.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah. Overall, I think we both agree this is a positive thing.
Yeah, 100%.
I've
been saying that a lot. How many 100% can I give you today? Can I give you 1,000%?
We need a couple more, okay?
Okay,
but that's
I'll
just,
try.
Yeah, but like guys, just be patient about it. I do encourage you guys all to go read the rule book because like
100%.
we can talk about it. Yeah, 100%, 1,000%. I'd love to see it. But like, please go do that. It might take a little bit of time, but if you scroll down to the very bottom, first of all, that's where you're going to find the templates. They did provide them to print at the very end of the pages, and it's just a little quick thing. Read that; it'll help clear up everything. I think a big part of what we're seeing is, first of all, the way it's been was there for 2 years, but also a lot of people aren't getting a chance to play with the rules.
Yeah.
I think once we play, like 99% of the time, I don't think you're going to need to actually check for line of sight.
It'll be pretty apparent once you get comfortable with it.
It will be, and just...
It's new. It's a change. Change is hard, you know?
Yeah.
Like, once you get used to it, though, it's just going to be muscle memory
Yeah.
or eye memory, I guess, when you can be like, oh, with the box, I can already tell that's going to be, like, a shot. So,
Right.
you know.
It doesn't help that like we aren't going to get our hands on this till September. So
Yeah.
well,
we have the template.
That's
which
true.
Also, shout out to, like, anyone and everyone that's making 3D printed one on Etsy or Shapeways or anything like that.
Did you see those ones that's like the
maps?
the maps?
Those
from
are so cool.
Endor?
Yeah.
I thought those were so cool. They're a little big, so I don't know if I would use them because there'll be cases where you're like, I'm not sticking that behind the character. But it's so cool.
I also really want to get used to doing this, like with walls. Like, okay, well, I can't exactly put this right directly behind because there's a wall there. You know, we'll see edge cases, but those are edge cases that we'll figure out when we get to play the game again.
Give us like a month.
Yeah.
And we'll be back.
So let's give our final thoughts on that then. Like all the changes, I mean, I think we're both in agreement that these changes overall are really good.
I would say largely positive. And even the ones that I didn't like at first, they're growing on me.
Yeah.
I like them.
I think this is directly, and this goes back to the points we were making earlier, being communicative with your audience and with your consumers. This is directly, like, I feel a lot of these changes are directly influenced by the feedback that they receive from the community. I don't know what the playtesters for the game are saying behind closed doors or anything like that, but I hear all these complaints, or I did, about all these things before, you know, from the community. And it feels so good when FFG does listen and, like, corrects or maybe makes an adjustment here or there to say, hey, we're listening. We want you guys to have fun playing this game. So
my favorite thing is that they specifically used Luke because he was the one that always got talked about.
Yep.
And they specifically used him in the example.
And Wookiees with the leader with his sword up there. Yeah.
They listen. they listened.
And R2, because people were wondering how that was. Yeah. They nailed, like, with the pictures that they used in the book, they nailed every single one that were, like, hot topics, you know? Anyways, moving on to community questions. What do we have in store for us today on community questions? How many pauses can I put in the sentence and still sound sane?
I think you stopped sounding sane a while ago.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Probably true.
Probably.
But yeah, run us through a couple questions, Matthew.
Absolutely. So the first one we've got here, in case you guys don't know, like I said again, shameless plug, go to the Discord. A lot of people on there, and that's where we get a lot of these questions from.
Yeah.
So feel free to, drop a question on there. Come join us. Got a lot of cool things. This first one is from Rebel Sean, and he asks, since we have flyers like the snow speeders, do you think X-Wings or TIE fighters will ever come into play in Legion? Maybe troop transports like the one that the First Order has? Question mark?
Ooh. Well, I know what your mind is already on, Matt. Somebody mentions a little bit of a LAAT action every now and
Those
then.
LATs they were working on.
Lats? Yeah.
Those LAATs.
Well,
do you want to take this one?
Well, let's unpack that. You first mentioned X-Wings and TIE fighters. I don't think so. It would be cool to see, like, maybe like you have like maybe a character that does like a bombardment or something, like for their pip or whatever.
You might say like an orbital bombardment.
Yeah, you might say that.
Maybe Leia.
Or somebody else, right? Maybe they do like a tactical airstrike or something, and you put, let's say you put an X-Wing model on one side of the board. Every time a unit activates, it moves X amount of speed. And anyone like in that, this is just me spitballing like how that could work, but every time that unit in its firing arc has like this unit in range, an enemy unit in range, it'll shoot at them. That'd be cool. Like, I don't see it happening though.
Yeah, yeah. It's too. I don't want to say it's too big because they can scale minis.
Yeah.
I think it defeats the purpose. I think we'll definitely see LATs and HMPs.
Oh yeah.
I think everybody.
You got to.
Yeah. Maybe even U-Wings? I don't know. Like, I think every faction, maybe minus the Rebels, could viably see like a hover air unit. In fact, we have the rules in the rule book. We thought they're for STAPs, but they're not. So it's got to be the
something
LATs.
else.
It's got to be the LATs.
You are firm on that, my friend.
I'm so firm. Like, I will die before that happens.
Watch,
like,
it's for like some stupid droid.
I'm calling it right now. It's
for BB-8. He has like this weird ability.
When he just flies.
His cable whip just
it's
like a helicopter. BB-8 gains hover 1.
Can't be shot. Range 1 attacks don't work. Lightsabers don't hit. I would love. I'm calling it right now. Gen Con announcements, LAAT and the HMP are the big announcements. I'm calling it.
I'll do you one better. Gen Con announcement, LAAT, HMP, AT-AT.
You think the AT-AT?
Dude,
already?
why would they go with those big units without bringing them all in? Sorry,
That's
Rebels.
true.
Sorry, Rebels. It's your fault, okay? It's your fault. You didn't have the resources for a heavy.
Should have been cooler.
No, I think they'll come out with something.
I think what they'll do for the AT-AT is I think they'll wait until they're ready to put the clone one out there. The ATTE.
Oh, you think?
I would think so. I don't know, maybe. Because I feel like there has to be parity, and the way they do things, there's a lot of parity. Well, I guess the difference is in Armada, they did the Super Star Destroyer, and then nothing came out to rival it. I guess they did have the Starhawk and the Onager, but those were together.
Okay, but you say that, but then we look at the recent releases, like the Phase 2 clones and the B2 clones. They were supposed to be parodies, but they're not similar at all.
Well, yeah, okay. Okay. But you do have, Infernal Squad bandos.
Yeah.
Cassian and Iden.
Right. Okay. I'll give you that. But I'm just saying, it's not unprecedented to not have parodies.
This is true.
But no, I see what you're saying.
I will say this. I have been talking about this. I told you about this idea, for going back to it. With somebody needs to have an ability where, kind of like the Cad Bane thing, where you put out tokens.
Yes.
And it's almost like a mine. When somebody, it's basically like a mine.
One might say it's like a mine.
One might say it is a mine, except it's coming from above.
Oh, okay.
Somebody should be able to call strikes like that. We already have the orbital bombardments. We already have maximum firepower. But I think that would be a cool objective to do. Where your commanders get through 2 or 3 bombing runs the entire time.
Yeah. Maybe this is how X-Wings come. No.
Yeah, maybe that's exactly. That's how you do it. So you put down tokens or something, and your commanders, instead of activating, maybe each commander can just activate an orbital bomb, like a bombing run.
Yeah.
Call one in.
That'd be tight. That'd be sweet.
Or maybe like that's like it's a commander with a pip, where like this commander can place a bombing targeting token at range 4 of them at the beginning of this turn, and at the beginning of the next turn, the bombing run happens, and everybody at range 1 takes damage. That'd be a cool way to do it without bringing them in, kind of a la Leia and Veers.
Yeah.
But without being too ridiculous.
No, I think that's a really great idea. Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a lot.
It could be like a 1 pip, but it would be a delayed reaction. It'd be cool.
Man, but I just keep on coming to the LAAT thing. Like, because like I think people like assume that LAAT is going to be super huge, but when you look at it comparative, like to people standing next to it in the movies, they're not that big. They're like 2 ATSTs next to each other
Well, like
in
the
size.
tanks are like technically as big, if not bigger. I mean, we saw Rogue One.
Yeah, and you could put them on that base, or maybe even a smaller base, because they're up in the air. You know, how ridiculous would that be, though? Like this, like trooper mini base size with a big flight stand, and then like
A Star Destroyer.
Like it's the Death Star, like almost to the roof of your building. It's just like this long stand. Death Star is up there for scaling purposes.
All right, so I can see all of your minis. They're all out of covered.
I can literally see your entire planet. Cover 1.
No, bro, that's covered 2. Okay, let's be real.
The atmosphere, you know, it blocks line of sight. Where's the template? Pull the template out.
Show me on the rule book right now.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I love it. But,
No, yeah. So I don't know. They're cool. I think they're coming. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we just covered
Maybe not
it.
X-wings and TIE fighters, but yeah.
I agree. Yeah, and I think that's right. We're probably covering in a card or an ability, but not themselves. The next question, this is from Ethan on the Discord again. What are your thoughts on subbing models? For example, using a Death Trooper to try out Inferno Squad. Yes.
100%. Like
100%.
Like, well, okay. Right now it'd be kind of weird because you don't know the card for the Inferno Squad. But as soon as you see it, we do it all the time. You know, there's still a different feeling when you actually have the mini, when you actually have their card, when you can reference it. It definitely feels like a demo game that you don't want to do all the time. Like when you're proxying in Cassian and K2, there's a lot of like, hold on, let me look this up because I don't know what the wording is, you know?
Yeah, like I had my phone the whole time.
It feels like a demo game.
It was also, this is actually something I like about the line of sight issue, is that before I was like, well, Cassian's a lot bigger than what I was using for Cassian.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, line of sight's not exactly the same. But now with the template, you can just be like, yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
Lets you do subbing in a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, and I think if they didn't want you to do that, they wouldn't spoil cards so early.
Yeah.
They like, or I should say, maybe they don't want us to do it. But if they didn't realize that's a thing, and if they weren't okay with it, they wouldn't show the stuff.
They would
off.
do the GW thing where like they announce it, and then 5 days later the product is for sale on the I say do sub, especially because if you're trying to be competitive, and I say this from like, you don't need to be winning worlds to be competitive. You can be casually competitive where you just want to perform well, or even just for fun.
And how many times have we talked about that
Dude,
too? Just,
all the time,
yeah.
right?
So listen to the podcast, you nincompoop.
Oh my god. Okay.
We're in a spicy mood. Can you tell we haven't played Legion in a couple weeks?
Tyler, we're gonna rewind to the whole Facebook thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need you to calm down, sir.
I need you to STFU.
I'm gonna need you to calm all the way down.
Never calmed up, Matthew. How many times do I have to say this? Slams pen to table.
That was aggressive.
That was very aggressive.
But I say yes. What do you say? Did you say anything other than yes?
You know, part of me wants to say no just to spite. No, but I think it's totally fine. No,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason why. Like going back to the thing, like if they weren't okay with you doing it, maybe they don't like it, maybe they do like it.
Yeah.
But if they weren't okay with it, they wouldn't do it.
I think tournaments are different.
Yeah.
Actually, that is something in the tournament regulations where they did talk about. You need to now bring the actual, like you've always had to bring the actual card no matter what, but you also have to bring the FFG products alone if you're on a live stream or anything like that, which is interesting that they pointed that out. I think it's just for Worlds. Go read the rulebook. There are things about bringing the product and whatnot. But if you're casual, dude, just ask your friend. Yeah. Ask whoever you're playing. They're probably
I think
fine.
you even need that little square that says proof of purchase.
Do you really?
No.
Why
do they even still do that? There's
I
probably some stupid government regulation that says that.
Dude, I throw those away. I should probably
Now
keep
you
them.
can't prove that you bought 18 different Pathfinder units.
Stop. I'm the only one that buy. Actually, my Pathfinders are looking really good.
They are. They're
They
mighty
painted up
fine.
real
We
nice.
both got our Pathfinders painted.
We did.
Not by you painted yours, and I had someone else paint mine. So I've been in. Man, we've talked about like you need to paint during coronavirus because that way you can stay sane and you get your hobby done.
Kyle's out here paying someone to do it.
I'm out here paying someone to do it, and then I'm playing Animal Crossing for 170 hours in this last week.
Oh gosh!
Don't judge me.
I
Don't
will.
kink shame me.
Oh, say nothing. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but next question. What's our next question, Matthew?
All right, so this is a big one. We're going to read this all off together. We'll break it down. This is from our boy Will. He says, do you think that FFG would be better served if spending development time for the Imperials and Rebels on fixing the bad units versus trying to put out more new units? Yeah. Good question. Seeing as, and he basically points out he has a lot of stuff, but the very end of the question is, I don't know about you all, but I'd happily pay $20 for a Rebel faction upgrade pack that gives me all new cards for the old units that brings them up to the level of playability. We talked about this a little bit in the past. Do you want to tackle this one? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, like I think we just need to unpack it. There's a lot asked there. Going back to like pretty much what I feel like he's getting at is like, should there be reprints? Should there be, like you said, upgrade packs? I think there's room for some of that. I don't want necessarily to have just like Rebels not have their, like I don't want Rebels to not have Nimble anymore. You know, like I don't want something like that. If we're talking like a Rebel only weapon, you know, like oh here's a super punchy weapon now that all Rebel core troopers can use. Okay, yeah. We've talked about like when they inevitably come out with Wookiees for the Clone Wars, they do like a Wookiee only armament upgrade that they can ignore the armament requirement, kind of like how droids have the integrated comm antenna, I think is what it's called, where they can ignore the tech upgrade. I think something similar can come out with them, where they just like you can just be like, okay, Wookiees only get this like immune to pierce or what, you know, whatever, you know, that'd be cool. I don't see it happening for like core units. I think mostly that would be reserved for spec ops.
I
or
agree.
commanders or something.
Well, it's an interesting thing because we talked about this last time with like snowtroopers, for example. Because I think when people talk about, I want to preface this. This is kind of my personal belief. This is just, you know, the doctrine of Matt. This isn't gospel, but it's, you know, the gospel according to Matt. I think units need to be somewhat playable, but like all units should be playable to an extent, but not all units have to be meta. And I would argue just about everything is playable right now. Maybe not to a competitive standpoint, but I think VA fixes a lot of the problems with a lot of characters.
A lot of units, just like even like Bombing Run validates speeders like 100%. 100%, Matt. 100%. Did you know that was a percentage?
We're up to like 10,000%.
Oh my gosh, it's over 9,000.
Okay. Side note, I saw this video that was so funny today. It was this lady's on the ground laughing. She's embarrassed, and her husband goes, "We're watching the news, and it says coronavirus deaths in this state hit over 9,000." Her first response was to pull up the video of him going, "It's over 9,000," and he's like, "How do you think of that first?" She was so embarrassed. But I think the ATRTs are a good example. Yeah. For example, just getting back to topic of where when Wookiees get released for Republic, they'll be better for Republic, I think. But they'll probably have upgrades that have lethal on them that you can put on the Rebels. I would love a Rebel upgrade pack with stuff like that, but
I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. I just not yet. At least maybe once there's enough units out that they can say, okay, we can chill out for a little while. But I think the game needs to get fleshed out a little bit more.
I am a firm believer, and I said this before, that nerf is going to go roundabout, but I'm going to come back to it. That nerfing is not really the way to go. But what I mean by that, really, when I say that, is that sometimes the answer to a unit that's overpowered or really strong, let's use like short troopers, mortar gun, the gun line, you know, or maybe like standby clones because they're getting more and more popular, you know. Something like a counter to that isn't always necessarily a nerf or a nerf. Maybe it's a new unit that brings cohesion or synergy to another unit, you know? Like, I think about teamwork as a keyword, you know? Maybe we get a Spec Ops unit, or maybe we get a freaking operative or commander that's teamwork Rebel troopers, you know? That would be freaking amazing. Like, every time, it's like quick thinking, or take cover, take cover. but better.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like take cover. Like, okay, so I'm dodging now. All my rebel troopers get dodge tokens too.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that I think would help them. Now then you get into the question like, well, okay, now is that like an instant add? I don't think so. You know, it just makes those characters viable in that certain list that you have in mind.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I completely agree, and I think that's what you're saying. Kind of goes a la Inferno Squad, and I want to bring them up because they specifically can tie into core units and spec ops units.
Mm-hmm.
So let's be real. If you wanted to run like Gideon, Hask, or Del Meeko in a set of scout troopers or snow troopers, there's a lot of benefits there. It's going to cost more, but I don't see those two units getting fixes anytime soon. I see them staying there, and if you want to run them, great.
Yeah.
They'll be run. I also think
low profile on someone that hits hard like Gideon. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Great.
Put them in scout troopers, you know?
Do it. Exactly. See, there you go. Or like snow troopers where you can pop out, shoot, pop back.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. There are uses. I think I see that going the way to be because not everything needs to be. Again, not everything needs to be meta, but everything needs to be a little playable. And I think more objectives, once we get them, will change things. Like Pathfinders, I've got this sneaking suspicion in my mind that they will be. There's got to be something to do with them. Yeah. There's got to be something to do with them. Not necessarily easy to find. Maybe it's a very niche use.
I also just realized.
I just want to be the guy that does that.
Yeah. I also just realized, quick clarification, that you won't be able to put these in scout troopers. The Gideon and Del Meeko. They're only gonna
that's right. Core Trooper or Imperial Spec.
So that was my bad.
Sorry,
I misspoke.
That's me, but yeah.
But yeah, so like you won't be able to do that.
Troopers.
Right. Snow troopers, I think putting an offensive push on them. Do snow troopers have training?
They have steady.
So short troopers have training though. Snow troopers don't. But short troopers with training, which already is like, it just makes that combo even better because we were already talking about how Gideon's going to go amazingly into short troopers. So
yeah, and
man, it's wild.
Yeah, and I just to go back to like I think the ATRT is great with it. Like Wookiees will probably be better for the Republic.
Yeah.
Than they are for Rebels. That's just how it's going to be. And let's be real, the Rebel faction isn't. They're not based on those things. They have other. They're all about heroes.
Yeah.
So it has to go into faction identity.
It's kind of going back to another thing we say all the time. It's like with droids, droids are an exaggeration of Rebels, where the units are super weak, but their heroes are super strong. So like Rebels are just a smaller version of that. We got Operative Luke, which is probably right now like my favorite unit in the game. Like he is just so good, you know. So, like, I can't say Rebels as a whole are bad. Like, they're really good. They have Sabine is amazing. So, when Mandalorians come out, we'll see how that even makes them even better, you know?
Agreed. And I don't know. That may be an unsatisfactory answer. But,
yeah. The truth is, we're not developers for Fantasy Flight.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that's a good point because we don't know what's coming out in the future.
Yeah.
We don't know. Maybe the meta will shift completely. I personally think it'll probably shift towards clones. Mm-hmm. Once arcs and stuff come out, I just think
Standby ARC Troopers.
Standby ARC Troopers, man. Also, I'm so tired of fighting clones and just I have surges everywhere. Everybody surges to defense. And that sucks.
It's like so unsuspecting. Like, oh yeah, I can shoot this guy. Now
I got 8 hits. Oh, you suffered 2. Great.
Man.
But I don't know. I think
long answer short. I don't think it's going to happen personally, but I don't want to say it's out of the question.
No, exactly.
I think it can, but I doubt it will.
I could see points changes.
Yeah. Right. I think that's another way that they could like really beef up some units like Wookiees is giving them a little bit of a decrease because they are really good at some things, you know.
Yeah.
So.
And if we're talking land speeder and air speeder, I think you got to build for those objectives, right?
Also, people want to hate on the airspeeder, bro. Like, I'm telling you, God gave us a gift, and y'all are sticking you're biting the mouth that feeds you. The airspeeder is good. It's situational.
After all these months, the truth comes out.
I'm a big fan of the airspeeder. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. All right? But I think that's it for us today, guys. That's all our questions. We will keep you updated with this whole coronavirus thing. Again, if it ever comes down to like the shelter-in-place thing here, we're probably going to have to do this podcast over Discord, so we'll let you know how that works.
Prepare for a lot of us sounding like Death Troopers.
And then Discord notifications going off every second. Ding, ding. ding. Freaking hate Discord notifications. I just slammed my pen against the. I've been doing that a lot today.
My gosh, dude, you need to go see like a therapist.
Dare I say 100% of the
1000%.
podcast? Yeah.
Agreed.
Anyway, that's it for us today, guys. Any
words?
concluding thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, wash your hands.
Wash your hands, you
Stay
nincompoop.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Calm all the way down.
Oh man, they're going fast. That was a car zooming by outside.
Zoom, zoom.
That was Sonic the Hedgehog. Gotta
Wrong.
go fast. I don't know, guys. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you're still here, we appreciate it.
Go fast.
Gotta go fast.
Bye.
See you guys later.